On May 3rd, Stars Reach dropped another update for their pre-alpha, and this one's called Physics Midterm. And this one has a lot of cool stuff. I'm Controlled Chaos. We're going to be going over all of it. Let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that they did is they added adhesion to materials like slate, gravel, stone, diamond, things like that. And this really enhances things a lot, because now you need, as you're mining, you're going to need to shore up based on the material. You'll learn as you go how far of a distance you need to go before shoring things up. Now you can, from what they've said, dig long, narrow tunnels, and this won't affect it. It's when you open up big, wide areas that you will see this take effect. And I saw this take effect when I was in a big, wide open area that had a lot of stone in it. I was digging up some of the stone, and inside that stone was onyx. I had stopped mining for a moment to let the battery recharge on my terraformer, and all of a sudden the onyx started falling down and hitting the ground and creating a pillar of its own of just pure onyx, which was really, really cool. They're still adjusting things and stuff like that, but it looks really good. Another thing that they've added is solid and liquid densities. So some things will float on certain surfaces, liquid surfaces, where others will sink. For instance, if you put peat on water, it will actually float on the water. It looks really cool. You can make little floating islands to stand on, which is very interesting. Another thing that they've done is the worlds are new, but they're the same old planets. And what they're talking about here is basically because of the adhesion change, it made it so that on, like, for instance, Rodian 4, it was collapsing the natural caves that were in there because of so much slate that it doesn't have much adhesion as like granite or other harder rocks, and so it was collapsing in. So they had to actually create pillars to add structure to these caves. So it looks like there's stalagmites and stalactites and pillars and just really cool stuff, and it's really changed up the way Rodian 4 looks, which I really like. I think it looks a lot cooler now. Another change that they've made is to XP. They have a rough pass to equalize the XP rate across the board. So combat will be equal to crafting, will be equal to mining, will be equal to botany, and so on and so forth. They'll all sort of gain at the same rate. So you're not going to have an advantage of doing combat over mining or anything like that. They all even out, which I really like on that. They've also adjusted the amount you need to give experience to unlock certain skills, which is really cool. Then mining resource rates. They have done a adjustment on that based on the hardness, because in the last update they added in hardness, making it that if you dug through peat, it would go through really quick, whereas if you went through like granite, it would be slower and things like that. Well, what they've done is they made it so that if you mine like a cubic foot of slate, you got that cubic foot of slate. If you found a area that had a lot of diamond in it and you mined about a cubic foot of that diamond stuff, you'd actually have a cubic foot of the diamonds, which is really, really nice. And they're still continuing work on that and doing things there too. They also added in resource stats. So this is good. This is them preparing for artisan crafting. And here are the 4 stats that they have. They have potential. And this is the ability to deliver or preserve supply energy. They have the quality, which is a general metric for fitness of the resource. Then they have the resilience, which is the ability for the resource to bounce back, withhold damage and stuff like that. Then there's versatility, which is its ability to change or cause change to things and stuff like that. And this is all really cool and going to help out, like they said, in advance of the artisan crafting, which is good. On top of that, to help out with artisan crafting, they've added in secure trading. So originally there was just gifting where you could give someone something. Now you can actually trade with someone. You can give them an item, they can give you a resource back or whatever you decide, because there's currently no currency. That still has yet to hit the game, but it is something they are working on. But the first step is, before you can have a currency, you gotta have a secure trading. So that's all being tested out. Another thing that they've done is a skill tree overhaul, which I mentioned earlier, of balancing out the values that you spend in experience to gain skills. But with this skill tree overhaul, they've added in so much more. They added in crafting. And the crafting tree, you have things like cooking, you have artisan crafting, which unlocks the abilities to be able to do things like refining, architecture, tool making, weaponsmithing, civil engineering, and that all uses crafting experience. So just crafting stuff will give you crafting experience. Then you got your regular combat experience. We now have a medic line, which is where the helix has been moved to for gaining medical experience, and you have to build those out. And of course, that's going to be underneath the tool maker or weaponsmith. I can't remember which it is. I believe possibly the tool maker, but like I said, I'm not positive. And then we have, of course, botany experience gives you botany. Farming experience gives you farming. Forestry experience gives you forestry, and mining experience gives you mining, and ranger experience gives you ranger skills. And that adds a lot to this, but there's also a lot of good miscellaneous fixes that they put in. Plants that would bear fruit, instead of it just having the plant disappear after your first harvest, it will stay there and you'll be able to gain fruit from it over and over again. Just like, for instance, a strawberry plant. When you pluck just the strawberry, the plant's still there and you can come back to it and get more strawberries. That's the same thing that they're doing here with the bushes that yield fruit. Now, mushroom drops are individual types for the different types of mushrooms, like brown mushrooms will just give you brown mushrooms, so on and so forth. Food recipes no longer require bones to make cooking a lot easier. Camp kits. The camp kits take more resources to make, but instead you gain one camp kit, you are getting a stack of 5 camp kits, which is really nice. Projectile damage has been visually upgraded, which adds in a lot to the game. It's nice that they're adding in the visual qualities to this. Creatures' health has been lowered for yellow and orange creatures to make it more entertaining for soloing. So you're not having to worry as much. So they lowered sort of the difficulty there for yellow and orange creatures. Killing creature XP has been significantly increased. This one I sort of liked because it was taking a lot to sort of get the experience needed to unlock things, plus also the balancing that they did of experience sort of adds to this effect. The Helix, Gravity Gun, and Companion Orbs, which is the drones, now have their own audio attacks. Another nice thing here. The harvesting, mining, hunting, and lumbering loot drops have been appropriately equalized, so you gain the right amount at the same rate, which is good. The maker spawn strategy has been revisited so that The lower encounter rate maker spawns fewer creatures, so it's no longer when you have these makers that call for assistance of the creatures and the wildlife. There isn't just constant over and over again, causing a really extremely long battle. I like this change. Bosses now drop anti-gravium and along with other loot, and then except for the dark wizard mushrooms they drop instead antimatter gas. That's another nice one. Meteors are now visible from a further distance. I remember you almost had to be on top of them to see the meteors. You now see them from a greater distance, and you can run towards them to take part in the meteor events. Boss events do not occur as frequently, which this is true because sometimes it's back-to-back constant boss after boss, and sometimes you'd be fighting one and then another one would spawn in and come join in on the fight sometimes, making things really, really tough. Power cells recipes now require reactive gas instead of just gas, so that's a change you want to be aware of when crafting. The fruit jam recipe now requires stem berries specifically and can only be made with these berries. Drone lights no longer require anti-gravium to make, making it easier to craft. You now have a new model for the paver tool. I've yet to check that out, but that's going to be really interesting to check out. And then makers now drop loot when destroyed, mostly gases and voxel blocks for now, but that's going to get improved over time. Overall, comment down below, let me know what you think of this update and your thoughts on it, what you like, what you don't like. Have a great day.